The crystal chandeliers of Lou Bijou cast an opulent glow on the meticulously polished silverware. Alexander Stone, a man carved from ambition and tailored in Savile Row, checked his Rolex for what felt like the 100th time. At 38, he helmed Stone Industries, a titan of industry worth more than some small nations. Yet he was drowning in a sea of weary routine. This blind date, the brainchild of his relentlessly optimistic assistant, Jennifer, was slated to be his last foray into the treacherous waters of romance. After tonight, I'm officially retiring from this charade, he muttered under his breath, the words barely audible above the clinking of champagne flutes. Relationships simply aren't in my cards. Just one more, Jennifer had pleaded, her voice dripping with persuasive hope. Elena is different, Alexander. She's not like the others. Please just give her a chance. Alexander had traversed this well-worn path before. Each woman Jennifer deemed worthy seemed to covet the same glittering prizes. His wealth, his prestige, the keys to his penthouse kingdom. But never him. Never the man beneath the tailored suits and the CEO title. He resolved to grant this Elena exactly 30 minutes of his precious time. After that, he'd conjure some urgent business matter, offer a perfunctory apology, and retreat to the sanctuary of his office, where contracts and spreadsheets offered a far more reliable form of companionship. As the minutes ticked by, a woman entered the restaurant, her silhouette briefly catching Alexander's eye. He barely registered her presence, his gaze already drifting back to the intricate details of the wine list. But something made him look again. She wasn't adorned in designer labels or dripping in diamonds. Instead, she wore a simple sundress, cream-colored and unpretentious. Her brown hair, pulled back in a loose, effortless style, framed a face that was both earnest and undeniably attractive. Here, we don't dish out garbage. Take your broke behind somewhere else. Derek Torres, the Harborside's floor manager, an upscale haven nestled in Boston's bustling financial district, sneered. His disdain was aimed at a customer sporting scuffed work boots and a jacket marred by a tear. The guy reeked of homelessness, an outcast amidst the sharply dressed lawyers and bankers who effortlessly dropped hundreds on elaborate cocktails. Unfazed, the man remained seated, his voice a low murmur as he requested water and fries, the menu's cheapest offering. Sarah Mitchell, a black waitress in the throes of her 5th consecutive double shift, observed the scene from across the polished bar. She recognized Derek's twisted game to humiliate the less fortunate in order to safeguard the establishment's upscale image. But something in the man's weary eyes resonated with her, a reflection of her own struggles. She moved towards him, a silent rebellion simmering within her. What she did next, her response to his humble request, left him utterly speechless, his mind struggling to grasp the unexpected act of kindness. Neither of them knew that this seemingly insignificant moment would unravel a secret that had been silently bleeding them all dry. Alexander Brooks sat alone in his corner office on the 14th floor, the glittering Boston cityscape painting a backdrop behind him. It was past 9 on a Tuesday, and the financial district had been deserted for hours. Usually he would have been long gone as well, but tonight, an anonymous email had shattered his routine, demanding his immediate attention. The subject line was simple: check the tip pool. Alex clicked it open, the message stinging with accusation even after reading it 3 times. They're stealing from us. The message was succinct, a single line followed by 3 attachments. The first photo showcased a schedule board, the neat rows of names marred by frantic, handwritten alterations. Sarah Mitchell's name was crossed out, her coveted Friday night shift brutally reassigned to Monday lunch. Emma Williams suffered a similar fate, her Saturday dinner shift replaced by a Tuesday breakfast. Both shifts had been slashed by someone wielding manager-level access. The second photo was a damning screenshot of bank deposits. Small, irregular amounts always carefully kept below the $1,000 threshold. $835 on October 31st. $890 on November 3rd. $1,235 on November 7th. The numbers defied any logical pattern. The third photo sent a surge of anger through him. A simple receipt from the Harborside Tavern, his flagship location. The credit card tip line read $45, but scrawled beneath it in a different ink was pool total $12. Alex swiftly pulled up his revenue reports, meticulously cross-referencing them with the dates highlighted in the email. The Harborside was, on paper, thriving. Revenue was up an impressive 12% over the previous quarter. Customer reviews consistently hovered around a stellar 4.7 stars. But something else caught his eye, a disturbing anomaly lurking beneath the surface. He opened the HR folder and scanned the termination records. In the past 6 months alone, 15 employees had voluntarily resigned from that single location. 15. The turnover rate had skyrocketed by a staggering 280%. He delved into the exit interview notes, hoping to find answers. Most cited vague, scheduling conflicts or personal reasons, but 3 mentioned management issues before abruptly cutting themselves off, the interviewer noting that they declined to elaborate. Alex leaned back in his chair, the weight of the information pressing down on him. His father had poured his heart and soul into building the original Harborside 30 years ago, transforming it into a beloved neighborhood tavern where everyone was greeted by name. When his father passed away 2 years ago, Alex had channeled his grief into expansion, opening 4 more locations, bringing the total to 5 restaurants and 80 employees. He delegated the day-to-day operations to trusted managers, focusing on growth strategy and investor relations. Had he become too detached, too focused on the numbers to see what was happening on the ground? His phone buzzed, a text from his business partner. Quarterly board meeting moved to Friday. Need your projections. Alex ignored the message, letting the phone fall back onto the desk. The projections could wait. He pulled up the schedule for the Harborside, focusing on the current floor manager, Derek Torres. 2.5 years with the company, an MBA from a reputable school. A strong interview, a confident leadership style. Alex had personally approved his hiring and his subsequent promotion to floor manager 18 months ago. Derek's performance reviews were glowing. Revenue was up under his watch. Labor costs were down. Customer complaints had actually decreased. But employees were fleeing, and someone, perhaps one of them, had risked everything to send Alex undeniable evidence of foul play. He opened a new browser window and logged into the POS system, sifting through tip data for the past 8 weeks. Credit card tips were tracked meticulously, automatically appearing on the server's paychecks. But cash tips were a different story, supposed to be distributed directly to the servers at the end of each shift. The system had no way of tracking those unless someone was intercepting them before they reached their rightful owners. Alex's thoughts drifted to his father's office wall, where a framed quote still hung, a guiding principle etched in his memory. Your people are your business. Protect them like it. He'd failed at that, letting the business grow while losing sight of the very humans who breathed life into it. His father would be ashamed. Alex closed his laptop, his gaze settling on the framed photo on his desk, a snapshot of the original Harborside on opening day in 1995. His father stood proudly in front of the bar, a worn work jacket his only armor. That jacket still hung in Alex's closet at home, a relic of his father's unwavering dedication. He'd worn it for 20 years, building the business brick by brick. Alex picked up his phone and opened a new note, typing 3 words, "Go undercover Thursday." He needed to witness the truth firsthand, not filtered through reports or sanitized exit interviews. He needed to sit at that bar, observe the staff, and see how his manager treated people when the owner wasn't watching. And if someone was indeed stealing from his people, desecrating his father's legacy, he would make it right, no matter the cost. Thursday night at the Harborside unfolded like any other. The after-work crowd began trickling in around 6, a sea of Brooks Brothers suits and leather briefcases, the young professionals seeking solace in happy hour deals. By 7, every table was occupied, and a waiting list snaked along the bar counter. Sarah Mitchell navigated the chaos with practiced grace, her movements efficient and purposeful. Table 8 needed another round of drinks. Table 12 was ready to order appetizers. The foretop by the window was waiting for their entrees. She expertly juggled 6 tables, 12 demanding customers, ensuring that orders flowed seamlessly to the kitchen. Sarah, Derek Torres called from behind the bar, his voice laced with a false sense of urgency. Table 9 is asking for you specifically. They're regulars. Sarah grabbed a stack of menus and headed towards Table 9, where the Thompson couple sat, their faces beaming with recognition. They came in every Thursday without fail. Always ordered the salmon special. Always left a generous 20% tip. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, good to see you again. Sarah greeted them warmly. Wouldn't miss Thursday with our favorite server, Mrs. Thompson replied, her voice laced with genuine affection. Sarah took their order, salmon for both, as expected, and returned to the POS station to ring it in. Derek stood beside the computer, his arms crossed, his gaze scanning the bustling floor with predatory intensity. Busy night, Sarah commented, inputting the order with practiced ease. Could be busier. Table 6 is camping. They finished eating 30 minutes ago. Sarah glanced at Table 6, where an elderly couple sat sharing a single dessert, their voices a quiet murmur. They're enjoying themselves. They're taking up valuable real estate. I need that table turned for the next seating. I'll check on them in a few minutes. Derek's jaw tightened, his patience wearing thin. Check on them now. We're not a retirement home. Sarah maintained a neutral expression, masking the resentment that churned within her. Of course. She walked towards Table 6, a disarming smile gracing her lips. No rush at all, but I just wanted to drop off your check whenever you're ready. The elderly man looked up, startled. Oh, we're taking too long, aren't we? I'm sorry. Not at all, Sarah said quickly, her voice reassuring. Take your time. I just wanted to have this ready when you need it. We'll get out of your way, the woman said, fumbling for her purse. Really, there's no rush. But they were already standing, placing cash on the table, their faces etched with a mixture of embarrassment and regret. They hurried out without finishing their dessert. Sarah returned to the POS station and processed their payment. The tip was exactly 10%, significantly less than their usual generosity. She pocketed the cash, adding it to the growing pile in her apron. By 11, the dinner rush had subsided, leaving only a handful of stragglers nursing their final drinks. Derek gathered the floor staff in the cramped back office. Sarah, Emma Williams, Jason Davis, and Rebecca Moore, the bartender, filed in, their faces etched with fatigue. Good night, everyone, Derek said, pulling the tip jar from under the bar with practiced ease. Let's settle up. This was the nightly ritual, a charade they all played along with. Everyone emptied their cash tips into the jar. Derek counted the total, his movements swift and secretive, then divided it according to some arcane formula that only he seemed to understand, distributing envelopes with each person's share. Sarah pulled $280 from her apron. The Thompson couple, Table 8, Table 12, the 4 top and 3 smaller tables. She kept a rough tally throughout the night, and her mental math told her it had been a good shift. Emma contributed $195. Jason added $240. Rebecca threw in $120 from the bar. Derek finished counting, his back strategically turned to the group, ensuring that no one could glimpse his sleight of hand. Slow night, he announced, his voice devoid of any genuine feeling. Only $835 total. Sarah's mental calculations didn't align with his pronouncement. She'd witnessed the room packed for 4 solid hours, but she remained silent, biting back the protest that threatened to escape her lips. Derek distributed the envelopes, his movements precise and efficient. Sarah opened hers, her eyes scanning the meager contents. Her expression remained unchanged, betraying no surprise, only a weary resignation. Emma opened hers and frowned, her brow furrowed with confusion. This seems low for how busy we were. Volume doesn't equal tips, Derek said smoothly, his voice laced with a condescending tone. Lots of bad tippers tonight. You all did great work, but that's what came in. Jason shrugged and pocketed his envelope without a word. Rebecca didn't even bother to open hers, her acceptance of the situation a silent testament to the power Derek held over them. But Sarah watched Emma's face, observing the subtle play of emotions, confusion, doubt, and ultimately, acceptance. The young server was learning the unspoken rules. Don't question Derek. Just take what he gives you and be grateful. After the others had left, Sarah stood alone at her locker, the fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows on her face. She opened the flimsy envelope again, her eyes tracing the stark number. She'd worked a grueling 6-hour shift, served 12 demanding tables, provided impeccable service, and she was walking away with a mere $63. With a sigh, she reached behind her extra uniform and pulled out a worn manila envelope, the label on front bearing her careful handwriting, Liam's college fund. She opened it, revealing its contents, 47 scraps of paper, napkins, receipts, torn order tickets, each one a silent witness to a night like this. Sarah took out a blank receipt and wrote, Thursday, November 7th, estimated $280 from my tables. Derek gave me $63. She folded the paper and added it to the growing stack, a testament to the injustices she had silently endured. 48 nights now, 48 lies. She slid the envelope back into its hiding place, grabbed her coat, and slipped out the back door. Her car was old, the heating system broken, but it started on the third try, a small victory in a night filled with disappointments. She sat there for a moment in the frigid air, her gaze fixed on the restaurant's back door, a symbol of the exploitation she and her colleagues faced. Then, with a sigh, she drove home to her son, her heart heavy with the weight of her responsibilities. Friday morning, Alex stood in his bedroom closet, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. His gaze settled on a jacket he hadn't worn in years, a ghost from a past life. The Carhartt work coat hung in the back corner, hidden behind the tailored suits and crisp dress shirts. It was 20 years old, faded brown with paint stains adorning the sleeves, his father's jacket, the one he'd worn while building the original Harborside. Alex had kept it after his father's death, unable to bring himself to throw it away, a tangible link to a man he deeply admired. Now he pulled it off the hanger and tried it on, the familiar weight comforting against his skin. To fit, but barely, the zipper stubbornly resisting halfway up. He looked at himself in the mirror, his reflection a stranger staring back at him. The jacket transformed him, stripping away the layers of success and sophistication. Gone was the tech entrepreneur, the polished restaurant owner with a corner office. In this worn jacket, paired with faded jeans and scuffed work boots, he looked like someone who'd spent the day toiling on a construction site, his hands calloused and his spirit weathered. Perfect. Alex had made his decision overnight, fueled by a potent mixture of anger and determination. He couldn't conduct an open audit of Derek's actions. If something criminal was indeed happening, a public investigation would only provide him with ample time to destroy evidence, burying the truth beneath a mountain of lies. He couldn't simply send HR either. Derek would charm them, skillfully deflecting the accusations, burying the problems under a veneer of polite explanations and carefully crafted excuses. He needed to see it himself, unfiltered, raw, and undeniable. His phone rang, his business partner's name flashing across the screen. Alex, where are the projections? The board meeting is in 6 hours. Send them my apologies. Something came up. What could possibly be more important? Tell them I'll join remotely on Monday. I have something I need to handle this weekend. He hung up before the argument could escalate, his mind already racing ahead. Alex spent the rest of Friday meticulously planning his undercover operation. He studied the schedule, committing the names and faces of the staff to memory. The Harborside operated from Tuesday through Sunday, closed on Mondays. Derek worked Thursday through Sunday, the busiest shifts, the prime opportunities for his alleged misdeeds. Tonight would be perfect. Friday night, peak hours, maximum staff, maximum customers. He drove to a bank across town, careful to avoid any familiar branches, and withdrew a meager $15 in cash. He left his credit cards at home, fearing that their presence would betray his true identity. He removed his watch, knowing that the Rolex would instantly give him away. He even took off his wedding ring, a sacrifice for the sake of the mission. He needed to become invisible, a ghost in his own establishment. At 6 o'clock, Alex donned the work jacket, the faded jeans, and his oldest boots, the Timberlands he usually reserved for yard work, the soles separating at the toe. He looked in the mirror one last time, scrutinizing his reflection. The transformation was complete. He was no longer Alex Brooks, the wealthy owner of a successful restaurant chain. He was someone else, someone anonymous, someone easily overlooked. His father's voice echoed in his memory, a timeless lesson learned from years of hard work and unwavering integrity. You learn who people really are when they think you're nobody. Alex grabbed his keys and headed out, a sense of grim determination settling over him. He parked 2 blocks from the harborside, deliberately avoiding the owner's reserved spot, a small act of defiance against his own privilege. He walked the distance, the cold November air biting through the thin jacket, a stark reminder of the vulnerability he was about to embrace. As he approached the restaurant entrance, he paused, his heart pounding in his chest. Through the window, he could see the familiar Friday night chaos, the packed tables, the servers moving with frantic energy, the bar teeming with customers, the laughter and chatter creating a vibrant symphony of sound. His restaurant, his staff, his father's legacy. And somewhere within that bustling scene, there was a serpent lurking, a poison slowly infecting the very heart of his business. Someone stealing from the people who made it run, desecrating his father's dream. Alex took a deep breath, steeling his resolve. He pushed through the door, bracing himself for the night ahead. The hostess, Maria Gonzalez, he remembered her name from the meticulously crafted org chart, greeted him with a professional smile that flickered slightly when she took in his disheveled appearance. "Hi there. Just you tonight?" "Yeah, just me." "Great. Let me find you a spot." She scanned the crowded room, and Alex saw her gaze instinctively skip past the best tables near the window, those prime real estate spots reserved for the regulars and the big spenders. Her eyes landed on a vacant seat at the bar counter, a space typically reserved for solo diners and those simply looking for a quick drink. "We have space at the bar if that works." "Perfect." She led him through the restaurant, her movements swift and efficient. Alex kept his head down, avoiding eye contact, acutely aware of the stares he was attracting. He passed Derek Torres, who was standing near the kitchen entrance, clipboard in hand, his gaze sweeping across the room with an air of authority. Derek's eyes passed over him without recognition, dismissing him as just another nameless face in the Friday night crowd. Alex settled onto the stool at the bar counter, the worn leather creaking beneath him. Rebecca Moore, the bartender, approached, her expression polite but impersonal. "What can I get started for you?" "I'll wait for the waitress." "Thanks." Rebecca nodded and moved on, already anticipating the needs of the next customer. Alex scanned the room once more, his eyes searching for a familiar face. There, across the room, was Sarah Mitchell, balancing a tray laden with drinks as she navigated the crowded tables. She moved with a quiet confidence, her smile genuine and her interactions with customers warm and engaging. She'd be his test, his litmus test for the soul of the harborside. And Derek, he would be the control, the variable that would either confirm or deny his growing suspicions. It was time to see who they really were, to expose the truth that lay hidden beneath the surface. Sarah finished delivering drinks to table 14 and glanced at the bar, her eyes scanning the new arrivals. A lone customer had taken a seat, sporting a worn jacket, scuffed work boots, and eyes that spoke of exhaustion. He looked like he'd just finished a long, grueling shift somewhere, his body weary and his spirit depleted. She grabbed her notepad and approached, her genuine concern evident in her eyes. "Hi there," she greeted him, her smile warm and welcoming. "What can I get started for you?" The man looked up at her, his gaze momentarily meeting hers before quickly darting back down to the laminated menu, his body language conveying a sense of self-consciousness. "Hey, he cleared his throat, his voice raspy from disuse. "What's the cheapest thing you have?" Sarah's pen hovered over her notepad, her expression unwavering, devoid of any judgment. We have appetizers starting at $7. The fries are popular, or we have mozzarella sticks. Just water is fine. He checked his phone, his movements awkward, as if he were checking a dwindling bank balance, his face etched with embarrassment. And the fries. Small order. That's all. Silence hung between them, a palpable tension filling the space. Sarah didn't write anything yet, her gaze lingering on his face. She looked at him, really looked, not with pity or condescension, but with a deep sense of recognition. She'd seen that same expression before, reflected in her own eyes in the mirror during the darkest years after leaving her ex-husband, the years of struggle and uncertainty. "Long day?" she asked quietly, her voice laced with empathy. The question seemed to catch him off guard, breaching the carefully constructed walls he had erected around himself. An honest answer slipped out, unbidden. "Yeah, long week actually." Sarah nodded slowly, her gaze unwavering. She set down her pen and leaned slightly against the bar, her body language signaling, "I'm not rushing you. Can I be honest with you?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. He looked at her, his eyes searching for any hint of malice or ulterior motive. "Okay. The kitchen made extra burgers tonight. We have a new line cook. Great guy, but still learning portions. Made 4 burgers too many." She smiled, a small, genuine gesture of connection. "My manager hates food waste. It's one of the few things he's actually right about." He remained guarded, wary of the hidden agenda he suspected was lurking beneath her kindness. "Okay. One of those burgers is going in the trash in about 10 minutes if someone doesn't eat it." She paused, her eyes meeting his with unwavering sincerity. "Would you be willing to help us out?" "I can't. I don't have money." "No charge," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "It's already made, already paid for. It's either going to you or going to the trash." She paused, allowing her words to sink in. "And between you and me, you look like you've been working hard. A person who's been working hard deserves more than just fries." Alex opened his mouth to respond, to thank her, to protest, but no words came out. He stared at her, trying to form a coherent sentence, his mind struggling to process the unexpected act of generosity. His throat tightened, his emotions threatening to overwhelm him. He couldn't speak. The camera would have focused on his face at this moment, capturing the raw emotion that flickered across his features. 5 full seconds, his mouth slightly open, his eyes glistening with unshed tears that he desperately blinked back, his throat working, trying to force out words that wouldn't come. Sarah waited patiently, her eyes filled with kindness, offering no pressure, allowing him to find his voice. Finally, he managed to whisper, his voice cracking with emotion. Why would you do that?" "Because everyone who walks through that door deserves to be treated like they matter," she said simply, her voice unwavering in its conviction. She picked up her pen, the gesture signifying her unwavering commitment to her offer. "It's that simple. So, can I bring you that burger? It's really good, I promise. House-made sauce, bacon, aged cheddar, comes with sweet potato fries." He still couldn't speak properly, his emotions choking him. He managed a small nod, his eyes reflecting his gratitude. Sarah's smile warmed, radiating genuine compassion. "Perfect. I'll get that right out. And don't worry, if my manager gives you any trouble about it, you tell him Sarah said it was kitchen waste and he can talk to me." She wrote on her pad, tore off the ticket, and turned toward the kitchen, her movements purposeful. "Wait," he called after her, his voice laced with sincerity. She turned back, her eyes questioning. "What's your name again?" "Sarah. Sarah Mitchell." "Thank you, Sarah," he said, his voice genuine, thick with the emotion he was barely controlling. "Really, I thank you." "You're welcome," she replied, her smile radiating genuine warmth. "Be right back." She turned and disappeared into the kitchen chaos, leaving Alex sitting there frozen, unable to move, unable to fully process what had just happened. His hand trembled slightly as he reached for his water glass, his fingers unsteady. He set it down without drinking, his emotions still swirling within him. Someone had just shown him more kindness in 60 seconds than most people showed in a lifetime, and she'd done it while being robbed blind by his own employee. Derek Torres had been watching from his position near the kitchen pass. His eyes narrowed with suspicion. He'd noticed the man in the worn jacket when he first entered, instantly categorizing him as exactly the kind of customer Derek preferred to see seated quickly and moved out even faster. Low value, probably a bad tipper, and now Sarah was wasting her valuable time talking to him. Derek strode towards the POS station where Sarah was inputting the order, his movements radiating barely contained anger. He leaned close, his voice low but harsh, a barely audible whisper. "What did you just do?" Sarah kept typing, her fingers moving swiftly across the screen, her gaze fixed on her task. She didn't look at him, refusing to acknowledge his attempt to intimidate her. "Kitchen waste. Extra burger from the new prep cook. I know what you did. That's a $24 burger." His voice had an edge now, a warning sign that she had crossed a line. It was going to be thrown out. "We don't give charity to people who can't pay. This isn't a soup kitchen." Sarah finally looked at him, her eyes meeting his with unwavering defiance. Her voice was calm, steady, a stark contrast to the fury simmering beneath his surface. "It's food waste. Company policy says we can comp reasonable amounts to avoid." "I don't care what policy says. You know the rules about unauthorized comps." He crossed his arms, his stance aggressive, his body language signaling his displeasure. "That's coming out of your tips tonight." A flicker of something crossed Sarah's face, a brief glimpse of the pain and resignation she had become so adept at masking. But she recovered quickly, her expression hardening. "Fine. Fine," Derek repeated, his voice laced with satisfaction. "That's it. Yes, that's it." She submitted the order on the screen, her movements deliberate, refusing to betray any sign of weakness. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have customers waiting and you're cut at 9 instead of 11. I don't need servers who waste time on people who don't tip." Sarah's jaw tightened, her knuckles white as she gripped her notepad. But she nodded once, acknowledging his decision. She turned and walked towards the kitchen, refusing to engage further. Derek called after her, his voice just loud enough for her to hear. A deliberate attempt to inflict maximum humiliation. "Bleeding heart's going to bleed you dry, Mitchell." She kept walking without responding, her back straight, her silence a testament to her strength and resilience. At the bar, Alex had heard every word. His position gave him a direct line to the POS station, and Derek's harsh whisper had carried just far enough, the vitriol in his voice cutting through the noise of the restaurant. The emotion that had left him speechless moments ago transformed into something else, something harder, something more resolute. She wasn't just being kind, extending a helping hand to someone in need. She was paying for his meal out of the meager tips she desperately needed to support herself and her son. And she was being punished for it, losing $24 plus 2 hours of valuable work. All because she had dared to show a stranger compassion. And she'd said fine without hesitation, accepting her fate with a quiet dignity that both humbled and infuriated him. Alex's hand, which had been resting on the bar, tightened into a fist, his knuckles white. He forced himself to relax his grip, to maintain a neutral expression, to avoid betraying the anger that threatened to consume him. But inside, something had irrevocably shifted. This wasn't just about investigating tip theft anymore. This was about a woman who had chosen kindness over safety, who had looked at a stranger and decided he deserved dignity, even when it cost her. And the man who was supposed to be managing his restaurant, protecting his staff, was punishing her for it, exploiting her generosity and crushing her spirit. Alex had come here seeking evidence, hoping to uncover the truth. But he'd found something far more important, something that resonated far deeper than any financial discrepancy. He'd found out exactly who Sarah Mitchell was, and he'd found out exactly who Derek Torres was. 8 minutes later, Sarah returned with a tray, her movements graceful despite the weight she carried. She set it down in front of Alex, and he stared at what she'd brought, his heart swelling with gratitude. The Harborside Burger Deluxe sat perfectly plated, The bacon crisped to perfection. The aged cheddar melted over the juicy patty. The house sauce glistening with promise. The bio bun toasted to a golden brown. The sweet potato fries arranged with meticulous care. Not the regular fries he had ordered. A subtle upgrade that spoke volumes. A side house salad with vinaigrette on the side, catering to his unspoken preferences, and tucked beside the plate. A small ramekin of decadent chocolate mousse. A final act of kindness that threatened to break his composure. The dessert wasn't. Alex started, his voice thick with emotion. I know, Sarah said, cutting him off with a gentle smile. But you said it's been a long week. Chocolate helps, trust me. She refilled his water without being asked, adding a lemon wedge this time, a small detail that spoke volumes about her attentiveness. Enjoy. Let me know if you need anything else. Sarah, he said her name, his voice catching in his throat, and she paused, turning back to face him. I heard what he said about your tips, about cutting your hours. You didn't have to do this. She met his eyes, her gaze unwavering, her expression softening. Yes, I did. A pause hung in the air, filled with unspoken understanding. My dad raised me to believe that how you treat people when nobody's watching is who you really are. She continued, her voice barely a whisper. She glanced towards Derek, who was watching them from across the room, his expression dark and disapproving. Even if someone is watching, it doesn't change what's right. She paused, her eyes locking with his, her message clear and direct. But you matter, she said simply, her voice laced with conviction. Everyone who sits at this bar matters. Don't let anyone tell you different. Okay. Before he could respond, before he could thank her properly, she turned and walked away to help another table, her actions a testament to her unwavering commitment to serving others. Alex sat there staring at the food, the lump in his throat making it hard to swallow. He picked up his fork with a trembling hand and took a bite, his senses overwhelmed. The burger was incredible, a symphony of flavors that danced across his tongue, but that wasn't why emotion threatened to overwhelm him. It was the act of kindness, the sheer generosity of spirit that had gone into creating this meal, that had transformed a simple burger into a symbol of hope and human connection. For the next 2 hours, Alex watched Sarah work, observing her every move, scrutinizing her every interaction. He forced himself to eat slowly, making the meal last, savoring each bite, not because he was hungry, but because he needed to witness the full extent of her actions. At 7:30, an elderly couple entered the restaurant, their faces etched with anticipation. The hostess started to seat them near the bathroom, the least desirable location in the establishment. Sarah intercepted smoothly, her voice laced with charm. Actually, Maria, table 8 just opened up. They'd probably prefer the window view. The couple's faces lit up with gratitude as they were escorted to the best seat in the house, a testament to Sarah's unwavering commitment to providing exceptional service to everyone, regardless of their status or appearance. At 8:15, a man in an expensive suit snapped his fingers at Sarah, demanding more water, his tone entitled and condescending. She didn't flinch, refusing to let his arrogance diminish her spirit. She refilled his glass with the same warm smile she'd given Alex, treating him with the same respect and courtesy she extended to everyone she served. Anything else I can get for you, sir? At 8:50, Derek cut her shift as promised, his decision a blatant act of retribution for her defiance. Sarah clocked out, but didn't leave immediately, refusing to abandon her colleagues and customers. She stopped by each of her tables, transferring them to Emma with detailed notes, ensuring a seamless transition. Table 6 has a dairy allergy. Table 12's anniversary, they might want dessert. Table 8 likes extra lemon in their water. Her dedication to her craft, her attention to detail, and her unwavering commitment to her customers was undeniable, a beacon of professionalism in a sea of mediocrity. At 9:15, the shift ended, and Derek called the servers to the back office for the nightly tip pool ritual. Alex stood from the bar, leaving a $10 bill on the counter, 2/3 of the cash he'd brought, a small token of his appreciation, and walked slowly towards the exit. But he positioned himself near the hallway, carefully choosing a spot where he could partially see into the back office through the narrow window in the door, a silent observer of the charade that was about to unfold. The ritual began, each server contributing their cash tips to the jar, their faces betraying a mixture of resignation and resentment. Derek counted the money with his back to them, his movements quick and surreptitious, shielding his actions from their prying eyes. He distributed the envelopes, his movements precise and efficient, his face devoid of any empathy. Sarah opened hers, her eyes scanning the meager contents. Her face showed no surprise, no outrage, just a tired acceptance of the injustice she had come to expect. She went to her locker, and Alex watched through the partially open door as she reached behind her extra uniform and pulled something out. A worn manila envelope, the label bearing the simple inscription Liam's college fund. She wrote something on a scrap of paper, adding to the growing collection of receipts and napkins, each one a testament to the dishonesty she had endured. She hid the envelope again behind her uniform, securing her secret, her silent rebellion against a system that was designed to exploit her. Alex left through the front door, stepping out into the cold November night, the air biting at his exposed skin. He walked to his car 2 blocks away, the distance giving him time to process what he had witnessed, to reconcile the man he thought he knew with the harsh reality he had just uncovered. He sat in the cold darkness, his mind replaying Sarah's words, her simple act of kindness echoing in his ears. Everyone who sits at this bar matters. He'd seen everything he needed to see, heard everything he needed to hear. He had the evidence he needed to take action, to right the wrongs that had been perpetrated under his nose. Saturday morning, Alex arrived at his office at 7 a.m., driven by a restless energy that refused to be contained. He'd barely slept, his mind replaying the events of the previous night, Sarah's words echoing in his soul. Everyone who sits at this bar matters. He picked up the phone and called his IT director at home, his voice firm and urgent. "I need security footage from the..." Alex's directive echoed in the silent office. Harborside back office camera. The last 8 weeks. A tense pause stretched, thick with unspoken implications. That's a lot of footage of Derek. Is everything okay?" The urgency in his voice was palpable. "Pull it. Don't tell anyone. I need it by noon." The response? Crisp and immediate. "Yes, sir." By midday, Alex was a prisoner in his own locked office. The hum of his laptop the only sound accompanying the damning visuals flickering across the split screen. He'd meticulously extracted specific dates, October 31st, November 3rd, November 7th, from the bank deposit screenshot buried within the incriminating email. October 31st came first. The timestamp glared. 11:47 p.m. The grainy image showed Derek, alone, entering the back office after the last employee had punched out. A furtive glance around, ensuring the door was securely closed, preceded his next move. He reached under the counter, retrieving the communal tip jar. With his back strategically angled to the camera, obscuring his actions from a direct view, he began counting the cash. However, his hands, the instruments of his deceit, were clearly visible. The rhythmic rustle of bills filled the silence as they moved from the jar to the desk. His fingers, nimble and practiced, worked with unsettling speed, separating denominations, counting, stacking. Then came the telltale act. A portion of the stack, carefully measured, disappeared into the depths of his jacket pocket. He meticulously recounted the remaining cash, dividing it into 4 smaller, seemingly equal piles, which he then slipped into waiting envelopes. The entire, calculated performance took a mere 3 minutes. Another check of the door, a final act of paranoia, and then he was gone. A wave of nausea washed over Alex. He fast-forwarded to November 3rd. The same sickening pattern repeated itself. Derek, isolated in the back office, counting, pocketing. This time, the camera angle afforded a clearer view. Alex could see with chilling precision how Derek brazenly removed roughly a third of the total cash before distributing the rest. November 7th, Thursday night, the night Alex had been present, playing the part of an anonymous customer. The same routine, Derek's hand moving with the casual efficiency of a seasoned thief, sliding bills into his jacket as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Methodically, Alex compiled the footage, the weight of the evidence pressing down on him. He discovered 43 separate instances of theft, meticulously executed over the course of 8 weeks. Every shift Derek managed, the same grim ritual unfolded. Count, pocket, distribute. Based on the visible denominations of the bills, Alex calculated a rough estimate. Over those 8 weeks, Derek had likely pilfered a staggering $12,800 from the tip pool. Maybe more. The weight of what he'd uncovered demanded counsel. Alex called his lawyer on Saturday afternoon. They met at a discreet coffee shop across town, far from the prying eyes of anyone who might recognize them. "This is felony wage theft," his lawyer declared, his voice grim after reviewing the damning footage. "The Department of Labor will prosecute if you file a complaint, but I'd recommend handling it internally first. Fire him, recover what you can, then decide if you want to press charges." Alex's jaw tightened. "I want him prosecuted. Then we'll need to document everything meticulously. Security footage is strong, but we need more. Financial records, testimony from affected employees, evidence of the amounts taken." Driven by a sense of justice and a burning need to right this wrong, Alex spent Sunday morning immersed in the restaurant's financial records. He pulled POS data for every shift Derek had managed over the past 18 months and meticulously cross-referenced it with payroll records. The POS system automatically tracked credit card tips, which were then distributed directly to the servers through payroll. However, cash tips were a different story. They were supposed to be distributed at the end of each shift, but the system had no record of those amounts. But Alex could estimate. He looked at the credit card tip totals and applied industry averages. If credit card tips were $400 on a given night, cash tips were likely around $250. He built a detailed spreadsheet chronicling dates, estimated tips, and what should have been distributed. Then he compared those figures to the bank deposits Derek had made, using the screenshots from the email as his guide. November 7th, the POS showed $835 in credit card tips. Estimated cash tips, $400. Total, $1,235. Derek had told the staff the total tips were only $835, lying about the credit card tips and pocketing all the cash. And on November 8th, Derek had deposited exactly $1,235 into his personal bank account. A cold fury gripped Alex. He checked other dates. October 31st. A discrepancy of $1,235, followed by a deposit of $1,235. November 3rd. A discrepancy of $890. A deposit of $890. The amounts matched exactly. A smoking gun. Sunday evening was dedicated to interviewing former employees by phone, their contact information painstakingly gathered from HR records. 3 agreed to speak. Emma Martinez, who had quit 3 months prior, recounted her experience. Derek took 40% of the tips, called it a management fee. When I asked if that was legal, my hours got cut to almost nothing. I couldn't afford to stay. 2 others confirmed the same pattern of exploitation. By Sunday night, Alex had constructed an ironclad case. 43 documented instances of theft on security footage. A staggering $31,200 stolen from 4 current employees over the past 18 months. Bank deposits matching the stolen amounts exactly. Testimony from 3 former employees who had been driven out by Derek's greed. POS data proving his lies. He created a folder labeled the Harborside Internal Investigation and meticulously compiled everything. Monday morning, he sent out a calendar invite. Mandatory staff meeting Monday 10 a.m. All floor staff required. Owner will address concerns. Derek received the invite and smirked at his screen. Finally, the owner was coming in. He probably wanted to congratulate them on the revenue increase. Monday morning at 10 a.m. 8 people gathered in the Harbor's conference room. Sarah Mitchell, Emma Williams, Jason Davis, Rebecca Moore, Maria Gonzalez, Tommy Anderson from the kitchen, and Derek Torres. The room crackled with nervous energy. Derek, brimming with false confidence, sat at the head of the table. Must be good news if the owner's finally coming in, he thought. Sarah sat near the back, quiet and apprehensive. She'd been summoned on her day off and wasn't sure why. A knot of anxiety tightened in her stomach. The door opened. Alexander Brooks walked in. Tailored suit, perfect haircut, owner mode fully engaged. He closed the door behind him and stood at the front of the room. Silence descended, heavy and expectant. Sarah's face drained of color. She stared at him, recognition hitting her with the force of a physical blow. Oh my God. Derek frowned, confused. Who are you? Alex met his gaze, his eyes hard. I'm Alexander Brooks. I own this restaurant. The tension in the room instantly became electric. Sarah felt like she couldn't breathe. The man from Friday night, the worn jacket, the cheap order. It was the owner. Thursday night, Alex continued, his voice steady and controlled. I sat at that bar counter wearing an $8 jacket and ordered water and fries. Sarah's hand flew up to cover her mouth, stifling a gasp. Sarah. Alex turned to her, his voice softening. You asked me if I'd had a long day. I said yes. You told me the kitchen had made extra burgers and asked if I'd help you out by eating one that would otherwise go to waste. I'm so sorry, Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. I didn't know. I didn't mean to. Don't apologize. Alex's voice was firm but kind. Let me finish. He walked closer to her. You offered me a $24 burger, upgraded sides, and chocolate mousse. No charge. You told me everyone deserves more than fries. The room was silent save for Sarah's shallow, rapid breathing. Alex turned to Derek, his voice hardening. Your manager overheard, told you that meal was coming out of your tips. You said, fine. He cut your hours from 11 to 9 as punishment. You said, fine again. Then you served that meal anyway and told me I mattered. Sarah was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. Derek. Alex's attention focused fully on the floor manager. You told me Thursday was a slow night. Said total tips were $835. Is that correct? Derek shifted uncomfortably in his chair. A sheen of sweat appeared on his forehead. Yes, it was slow. My POS system shows $835 in credit card tips and an estimated $400 in cash based on typical ratios. Over $1,235 total. Can you explain the discrepancy? Silence hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Alex pulled out his laptop and turned the screen to face the room. The security footage began playing, the grainy images filling the room with a damning truth. Derek, alone in the back office late at night, counting the tip jar, pocketing cash. Gasps echoed around the room. 43 times, Alex said quietly, his voice laced with controlled anger. Over 8 weeks, I had my IT director compile every instance. The footage continued to play, Derek checking the door, sliding bills into his jacket, counting what remained. You stole an estimated $12,800 in 8 weeks alone, Alex stated. And when I audited the last 18 months, the total rises to $31,200 from 4 employees. Emma Williams had tears streaming down her face. Jason Davis looked furious, his fists clenched. Rebecca Moore sat frozen in shock, her eyes wide with disbelief. Sarah Mitchell. Alex pulled up a spreadsheet. $11,200 stolen from you over 18 months. Sarah made a small, choked sound, almost a sob. Jason Davis, $8,100. Emma Williams, $6,800. Rebecca Moore, $5,100. Those are just estimates, Derek stammered, his voice weak. No, they're calculations based on POS data cross-referenced with your bank deposits. Alex pulled out another document. November 7th, you deposited $1,235 into your account, the exact amount of the discrepancy. October 31st, deposited $1,235, exact match. November 3rd, $890, also exact. Derek's confident posture crumbled. his shoulders slumping in defeat. "Sarah," Alex said softly, "do you have anything you'd like to share with everyone?" All eyes turned to her. She sat frozen for a moment, then slowly stood, her legs trembling. She walked to her locker in the hallway, visible through the conference room's glass wall. Everyone watched in hushed anticipation. She reached behind her uniform and pulled out a worn manila envelope. She returned to the conference room and placed it on the table, the label facing up, Liam's college fund. She opened it, and papers spilled across the table. 48 pieces of napkins, receipts, and order tickets. "I've been documenting everything," she said, her voice shaking but resolute. "Every shift for 9 weeks. Every dollar I counted from my tables versus every dollar Derek gave me." She picked up one piece of paper. "Thursday, November 7th. My tables estimated $280. Derek gave me $63. She picked up another. "October 30th. Estimated $245. Received $71. Another. "October 23rd. Estimated $310. Received $89. She looked directly at Derek, and for the first time, there was something other than fear in her eyes. "I didn't know if anyone would believe me, but I knew someone had to care eventually, so I wrote it all down." Alex picked up several papers, reading, "Total documented discrepancy. $8,400 over 9 weeks. This is—" Derek started, his voice desperate. "You can't prove." Alex's voice cut through his denials, icy and unforgiving. "I have security footage, POS data, bank records, testimony from 3 former employees who quit because of you, and now Sarah's documentation, which matches our data perfectly." He paused, his gaze unwavering. "You're fired. Effective immediately. Security is waiting outside to escort you from the building." Derek's face flushed crimson. "You can't do this. If you contest this termination, set foot on this property again, or attempt to contact any current or former employees, I will file criminal charges for felony wage theft. The Department of Labor is already reviewing this case." 2 security guards entered the room, their presence imposing. "Get him out of my restaurant," Alex commanded, his voice devoid of emotion. Derek looked around the room, his eyes pleading, searching for a flicker of sympathy in the faces of Sarah, Emma, Jason, and Rebecca. But no one met his gaze. The guards took his arms and led him out. The door closed behind them, leaving a void filled only with stunned silence. Alex remained standing at the front of the room, his presence commanding. The staff sat in stunned silence, grappling with the magnitude of what had just transpired. "What happened here?" Alex began, his voice quiet but firm. "Is my failure." Sarah looked up, surprised. "I got too distant, too focused on expansion, on revenue numbers, on board meetings. I lost sight of what my father built this place on, taking care of people." He paused, the weight of his words hanging heavy in the air. "That ends today. Not with words, with action." He pulled out a folder and opened it on the table. "First change, effective immediately. No more forced tip pooling." The staff exchanged surprised glances. "The company policy has always been that tips are individual unless servers choose to voluntarily pool them. Derek violated that policy. From now on, tips are yours. Period. If you want to pool with coworkers, that's your choice, but it's voluntary and it's transparent." Sarah wiped her eyes, trying to absorb his words. "Second, new POS system upgrade. Starting next week, the system will auto-track tips per server, both credit card and cash. You'll be able to log into a portal and see your exact tip totals for every shift. No more black box. Complete transparency. Third, weekly tip reconciliation reports. Every Sunday night, the system generates a report showing total tips collected and total tips distributed. Any discrepancy over $10 gets flagged for immediate investigation, and those reports are posted in the break room for all staff to see." Alex walked around the table, making eye contact with each person. "Fourth, anonymous tip line. There's a poster being installed in the break room today with a QR code and phone number. Any concern, Any issue with management, scheduling, pay, treatment, you can report it anonymously. Those reports come directly to me, not to your manager. To me. Rebecca spoke up, her voice small and hesitant. What if management retaliates for reporting? Then they get fired. Zero tolerance policy. It's in writing in your employee handbook, effective today. Alex pulled out printed copies and handed them around. Retaliation for reporting legitimate concerns is grounds for immediate termination with cause. The staff stared at the documents, their faces a mixture of shock and hope. 5th quarterly owner walkthroughs, unannounced. I'll be here, talking to everyone. Dishwashers, boozers, line cooks, servers, bartenders, not just managers. I want to hear from the people doing the work. 6th, server representative. Starting this month, you'll elect one person from the floor staff to attend monthly management meetings. They'll have a voice in scheduling, policy changes, and any issues affecting servers. Real representation, not token. Emma raised her hand tentatively. What about the money Derek took? Can we get it back? Alex opened his briefcase and pulled out several envelopes. I've audited the last 18 months. Every stolen dollar gets repaid with 18% interest for the time you've been without it. He started calling names, his voice resonant with purpose. Emma Williams, $6,800 stolen. With interest, $8,024. He handed her an envelope. Emma opened it and stared at the check, tears streaming down her face. Jason Davis, $8,100 stolen. With interest, $9,558. Jason took the check with shaking hands. Rebecca Moore, $5,100 stolen. With interest, $6,018. Rebecca covered her mouth, sobbing. Sarah Mitchell. Sarah stood, barely able to keep her legs steady. $11, $200 stolen. With interest, $13,216. He handed her the envelope. Sarah opened it, stared at the check, and her knees nearly gave out. Emma and Rebecca moved to either side of her, holding her up. I can't, Sarah whispered. Her voice choked with emotion. It's yours. It was always yours. I'm just returning what was stolen. But that's not all, Alex said. Sarah looked up at him through a haze of tears. I'm offering you the position of assistant general manager. Immediate start. The room went silent again, the air thick with surprise. Sarah shook her head. I can't. I'm just a server. I don't. No, Alex's voice was firm. You're not just anything. Thursday night, you documented injustice for 48 days. You treated customers with dignity when your manager punished you for it. You protected younger staff members. You never gave up, never stopped doing the right thing. That's not service. That's leadership. I don't know how to. You know how to treat people with respect, how to protect the team, how to choose principle over convenience. That's all leadership is. He pulled out another document. Assistant General Manager, 35% salary increase over your current pay, full benefits package. He paused, meeting her eyes. Including full health care with dependent coverage. Sarah's breathing stopped, her eyes widening in disbelief. Your son's medical needs, insulin, test strips, pump supplies, doctor visits, specialists, all covered. Zero copay for chronic disease management. Sarah collapsed back into her chair, sobbing, full body shaking sobs of relief. The weight she'd been carrying for years, the constant terror of affording Liam's insulin, the meticulous calculations of every dollar, the fear of one unexpected medical bill destroying them, lifted all at once. Emma wrapped her arms around Sarah. Rebecca joined them, offering silent support. Even Jason's eyes were wet with emotion. Alex gave them a moment, then continued quietly. And there's a $3,000 annual education stipend for professional development or... He glanced at the worn envelope still on the table. For Liam's college fund, a real one. Sarah couldn't speak, could only cry, the sobs racking her body. Will you help me make sure this place stays what it's supposed to be? Alex extended his hand, offering partnership, offering hope. Sarah looked at his hand through her tears, then at her coworkers, who were nodding, encouraging her. She looked at the check in her shaking fingers, then at the envelope labeled Liam's college fund, that had been both her weapon and her burden. She stood, still trembling, and took Alex's hand. Yes, the room erupted in applause, a wave of relief and joy washing over everyone. Tommy whistled from the back. Emma was crying and clapping simultaneously. Alex shook Sarah's hand firmly, his grip conveying his confidence in her. "Welcome to management. We have a lot of work to do." Sarah nodded, unable to form words. She looked around at her team, her family. Really, they were smiling at her, proud of her. For the first time in years, Sarah Mitchell felt safe. 3 months later, Harborside had undergone a remarkable transformation. Sarah stood near the kitchen pass, wearing her new manager shirt, navy blue with Assistant GM, embroidered on the pocket, a tangible symbol of her new role. 2 new servers, both college students, stood beside her, absorbing her guidance. "Everyone who walks through that door matters," Sarah explained, echoing the words that had become her teaching mantra. "Rich, poor, dressed up, dressed down, they all get the same respect. That's not optional. That's who we are." The younger server, Katie, raised her hand. "But what if they're rude to us?" "You still treat them with dignity. That's your choice, not theirs." Sarah smiled. "My dad used to say, the measure of a person is how they treat people who can't do anything for them. Be the person you're proud to be, regardless of how others act." "Got it," Katie said, scribbling notes. "Now let's talk about the POS system and how tip tracking works." Across the restaurant, Alex sat at a corner booth, reviewing the weekly tip reconciliation report with Emma Williams and Jason Davis. The numbers spread across the table were transparent, reflecting a new era of accountability. Every dollar tracked, every distribution verified. "Last week you made $380, Emma," Alex said, pointing to the report. "Does that match your portal?" Emma checked her phone, opening the staff app. "Yep. $380 exactly." "Good. Any discrepancies, you tell Sarah or me immediately, even small ones. We investigate everything." Alex looked at Jason. "You good?" "Yeah. Made $420. System's working great." Jason hesitated, a question lingering in his eyes. "Can I ask something?" "Always. That anonymous tip line, does anyone actually read those?" "I personally read every single one, and Sarah reviews them with me weekly." Alex pulled out his phone and showed them the dashboard. "Last month, we got 23 submissions. Most were positive feedback. A few concerns about kitchen temperature during the lunch rush. We fixed the AC unit. One about a supplier delivery blocking the staff entrance. We changed the delivery time." "And nobody got in trouble for reporting?" Emma asked, still cautious. "Not a single person. That's the whole point. If something's wrong, we want to know before it becomes a bigger problem." At the bar, Rebecca Moore was training the new bartender, instilling the same values of transparency and fairness. "The system auto-calculates your tips. Now, at the end of your shift, you log in, verify the amount, and it goes directly to your paycheck. No jar, no manager handling it, just you and the system." Near a back booth, 7-year-old Liam Mitchell sat doing his homework, his backpack spread across the table. His insulin pump was visible on his arm, the device that kept him healthy, now fully covered by his mother's comprehensive insurance. Tommy Anderson emerged from the kitchen with a plate of fries. "Homework fuel," he said, setting it down with a smile. "Thanks, Chef Tommy." Liam grinned. "Mom says you make the best fries in Boston." "Your mom's a smart woman. How's the math coming?" "It's hard. But Mom says hard things are worth doing." "She's right about that, too." Tommy ruffled Liam's hair and headed back to the kitchen, passing Sarah on the way. She watched her son for a moment, healthy, safe, doing normal kid things, and felt a surge of gratitude so profound it ached. At 7 p.m., a man in worn work clothes entered the restaurant. The new hostess, Angela, started to lead him toward a less desirable table. Sarah intercepted smoothly, her actions reflecting a deep-seated commitment to treating everyone with respect. Actually, table 8 just opened. It has a much better view. The man looked surprised. Thank you. That's really kind. Everyone gets our best. Enjoy your meal. As Sarah walked past the POA station, Emma caught her eye and smiled. They both understood this was the standard now, not the exception. This was the standard. Later that evening, Alex arrived for one of his unannounced quarterly walkthroughs. But instead of heading straight to the office, he went directly to the kitchen, seeking out the voices of those who often went unheard. How's everyone doing tonight? He shook hands with the dishwasher, checking in on him. Diego, right? How are we treating you? Good, Mr. Brooks. Really good. Sarah checks on us every shift. Asks if we need anything. Alex found Sarah at the end of her shift, her face radiating a quiet satisfaction. The staff says you're checking on everyone. Just doing my job. That's not in your job description. Sarah smiled, her eyes twinkling with warmth. My dad used to say, taking care of people isn't a job description. It's a job qualification. Alex laughed, a genuine, heartfelt sound. I wish I could have met him. You did, Sarah said quietly, her gaze steady. Every time you treat someone with dignity, you're meeting him. That's the legacy he left. And she gestured around the restaurant, at the staff working together, at Liam doing his homework safely, at the poster on the wall with the anonymous tip line. That's the legacy you're building. Alex looked around his restaurant, his father's restaurant really, and now Sarah's too. It wasn't perfect. There were still problems to solve, complaints to address, systems to improve. But it was moving in the right direction, guided by a new compass of fairness, transparency, and respect. And that was enough. 6 months after that pivotal Thursday night, Sarah Mitchell stood at the kitchen pass during lunch service, radiating confidence and calm. The restaurant hummed with its usual energy, customers laughing, servers moving efficiently, kitchen calling out orders, everything in its right place. A testament to the power of change. Derek Torres had pleaded guilty to wage theft and fraud. The Department of Labor had prosecuted him, and he had received probation plus full restitution. He wouldn't manage people again, ensuring that his reign of exploitation was finally over. But Derek was just one person, one symptom of a larger systemic problem. The real issue was bigger, more insidious, more widespread. Alex had learned that an estimated 40 million Americans experience wage theft every year. Stolen tips, edited time cards, unpaid overtime. A staggering $15 billion stolen annually, more than all robberies combined. The most common crime most people had never heard about, largely because victims were often afraid to speak up, silenced by fear of retaliation or disbelief. That had to change. Alex sat at the bar counter, the same seat where he'd sat 6 months ago, and looked directly at the camera mounted on the wall. This was the part he'd agreed to film for the documentary team, a chance to amplify the message of justice and empower those who had been wronged. If you're experiencing wage theft, Alex said, his voice earnest and resolute, and thousands of you watching are, here's what you do. First, document everything. Sarah's envelope saved not just her case, but 3 others. Keep your own time records, photograph schedules, save receipts. Your phone can be your protection. He paused, emphasizing the importance of his next point. Second, know your rights. The Department of Labor has resources at dole.gov/ag/WD. Wage theft is illegal. Period. You don't need a lawyer to file a complaint. He leaned forward, his eyes conveying a sense of solidarity and encouragement. Third, you're not alone. 40 million people. Share your story. Let others know they're not the only ones fighting this. His gaze shifted, addressing the business owners who might be watching. And if you're a business owner watching this, your people are your business. Protect them fiercely. Create systems that make integrity the default, not the exception. Be the leader your team deserves. He concluded with a call to action, a reminder of the transformative power of empathy. If you manage people, remember what Sarah did. She treated someone with dignity when it cost her. That's not weakness. That's strength. That's leadership. The screen displayed text, National Wage Theft Hotline, 1-844-762-3952. Alex stood from the bar and walked to where Sarah was working, the weight of his message hanging in the air. She smiled at him, a smile filled with gratitude and shared purpose, then turned to greet a new customer, a woman in paint-stained jeans and a tired expression. "Hi there," Sarah said warmly, her voice radiating genuine welcome. "What can I get started for you?" The same kindness, the same dignity, the same unwavering commitment to treating everyone with respect. Because everyone who walked through that door mattered. Everyone.